بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحن نقص عليك نبأهم بالحق إنهم فتية آمنوا بربهم وزدناهم هدى.
Taqlid denotes referring to an authority or an expert in a specific field of knowledge. It is a practice rooted in intellectual societies, whereby someone seeks guidance from an expert in any field in which they lack competence. Across various domains, medicine, politics, arts, finance, and ethics, humans naturally strive to optimize their decisions by consulting experts, whether past, present, or future. When lay people face engineering problems, they seek guidance from professional engineers rather than doctors. When people have medical issues, they consult a doctor rather than an engineer. When a physician writes a prescription, it can be considered a medical verdict that the patient must implement, and the patient performs taqlid of the physician. In religion, this principle is even more serious for us as Muslims, especially for the followers of the Ahl al-Bayt, peace be upon them. If any of us has not reached that level of ijtihad and competency and lacks sufficient knowledge of the Quran, the Hadith, and the intellectual methodology used to derive the laws from them, we must refer to an expert who has reached that level. It is apparent that the role of rationality in jurisprudence shows that the necessity of taqlid is universally recognized by reasonable human beings. Taqlid, therefore, is aligned with al-fitra, the innate human tendency to seek knowledge and guidance from those who are more knowledgeable and expert than oneself. The verse of Surah At-Tawbah, 9 verse 122, states, "It is not for the believers to go forth all at once. A group should remain so that they may attain deep knowledge in religion and warn their people when they return to them." It indicates that when the Muslim community is attacked and goes to defend itself, not everyone should go to the battlefield. There must be a group that remains behind to learn and become scholars, who should guide those Muslims returning from the battlefield. Shahid Muhammad Bakr as-Sadr mentions that if it is obligatory upon those scholars to guide, then in return it would be obligatory upon those Muslims to follow their guidance, namely to perform taqlid of the scholars. The verse in Surah Nahl 16 and 43 states, "Ask those who know if you do not know." This verse refers specifically to our infallible appointed imams, peace be upon them, who are the most knowledgeable in the communities. In general terms, it commands us to refer to those who possess knowledge, particularly those who carry the imam's knowledge, thereby fulfilling their role of guidance in their absence. Historical accounts record the practice of imams appointing trustworthy representatives to facilitate taqlid. From the earliest days of Islam, the imams, peace be upon them, ensured people received the right guidance in their absence. They chose trustworthy and knowledgeable individuals and sent them to different cities and communities. The imams, peace be upon them, directed people to learn their religion from these scholars and to follow their guidance. This shows that taqlid isn't something new. It has always existed to help people understand and practice Islam properly by learning from those more knowledgeable about the teachings of our infallible imams, peace be upon them. Think about school for a moment. If you wanted to do well in maths or science, you wouldn't try to figure everything out on your own. You'd learn from a teacher who has already studied the subject. This shows that taqlid isn't about blindly following. It's about learning from qualified teachers so we can practice Islam correctly and with confidence. There are multiple narrations about Yunus bin Abdurrahman, a noble and scholarly companion of Al-Imam al-Rida, peace be upon him. For example, one narrator asked Imam al-Rida, "I am unable to meet you at all times. From whom should I take the principles of my religion?" He replied, "Take from Yunus bin Abdurrahman." Al-Khawi, Encyclopedia of Narrators of Hadith, Volume 21. Similar accounts have been recorded regarding other scholarly and noble companions of our infallible imams, peace be upon them, who will be mentioned in the next session. These practical examples show that the principle of taqlid, was institutionalized early in Islamic history by our infallible imams, peace be upon them, ensuring that the faithful rely only on authorized sources for the correct interpretation and application of divine law. Some claim that many fatwa and Islamic rulings conflict with logic. This claim is incorrect, particularly within the seminaries of the mainstream Shia Twelver school of thought, where al-mantiq is taught from the very first day a student enters the seminary. From the beginning of their academic life in the seminary, students study logic for decades, receiving extensive training in constructing logical arguments and in rebutting and countering arguments through precise logical structures until they arrive at firm conclusions free from irrational flaws. Their minds are developed through rigorous logical methodology, free from philosophical loopholes, unlike some other religions and sects where, in many instances, the use of logic in understanding religion is explicitly prohibited. This systematic approach develops the intellect and structures arguments coherently and consistently. Over the course of 10 to 15 years or more, a scholar continuously employs logical reasoning as an essential tool of scholarship. Moreover, if a senior scholar were weak in logical argumentation, he would never attain a higher rank of authority within Islamic law of the Shia Twelver school of thought, regardless of fame, wealth, or any other factor, except proven competence in jurisprudence. The highest authority is necessarily the one most proficient in understanding and applying usul al-fiqh, employing its logical principles to derive Islamic rulings from their authentic sources. Therefore, if the highest legal authority within the mainstream usuli school, who has relied on logical methodology throughout his entire scholarly life and holds a critically scrutinized position among his peers in the seminary, attains the rank of marja, it is virtually impossible that he would issue Islamic laws or fatwa that contradict logic. Hence, within the framework of the mainstream Shia Usuli school, it is both absurd and irrational to claim that the fatwa of the most knowledgeable Shia marja, who represents the highest authority in Islamic law, is contrary to logic. In other fields of life in which he lacks expertise, the marja of Taqlid, even if he is the most knowledgeable among his peers in the seminary and highly skilled in deriving Islamic laws from their sources, refers to experts from those respective fields. This is evident when, in his legal reasoning, he explicitly states, according to medical professionals, or according to experts in astronomy, and similar formulations. Therefore, a mujtahid does not operate in isolation. There is a collective dimension to ijtihad, in the sense that a mujtahid consults specialists in various disciplines when forming his rulings. For example, His Eminence Sayyid al-Sistani, may Allah the Exalted prolong his blessings, has never issued a declaration of moon sighting to mark the beginning of a lunar month without consulting experts in astronomy and related sciences. There exists a dedicated department for observatory and astronomical studies under his authority, and he is surrounded by multiple experts across various scientific and technical fields. Thus, a mujtahid works in collaboration with experts to arrive at sound juridical conclusions. However, the notion of collective ijtihad as a replacement for individual juristic authority remains largely theoretical and lacks practical applicability. For instance, if 5 mujtahideen are consulted on a single issue, they will naturally arrive at differing conclusions, as is historically and practically observed. Islam recognizes and respects these differences that arise from independent ijtihad. The opinion of one mujtahid cannot be imposed upon another, nor can it be forced upon the followers of a different mujtahid. This represents one of the major practical limitations of the theory of so-called collective ijtihad. In conclusion, Taqlid fulfills fundamental human needs, both theologically and rationally. 1. Acquisition of knowledge beyond personal capacity. No individual can master all aspects of jurisprudence. Taqlid provides access to specialized knowledge. 2. Preservation of religious integrity. Reliance on authenticated scholars protects the community against error and misinterpretation. 3. Alignment with divine will. Following the guidance of the Ahl al-Bayt and their authorized representatives, ensures conformity with the commands of the exalted Allah as revealed in the Quran and the Hadith. Where an idea is both rationally sound and supported by religious texts, such as Quranic verses and Hadith, it becomes a firmly embedded tenet of belief. Taqlid exemplifies such an idea, serving as a natural and divinely sanctioned obligation. Taqlid is not arbitrary. It fulfills the human desire inherent in human nature, ensures the proper transmission of religious knowledge, and anchors believers in the teachings of the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them. By practicing taqlid, believers refine their path towards Allah the Exalted, the ultimate purpose of human existence.
وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين وسلم تسليما كثيرا وحسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل